Okay, this week's Torah portion is Parshas Toldos. So we're going to do like we usually do. We're going to go through the main points of the story and dive into it and try to learn some practical messages that we could take out of it. It's, once again, like all Torah portions in the book of Parshas, it's a fascinating read with a lot of incredible stories going on here. So we start off with Yitzchak and Rivka. So last week's Parsha, we talked about how that shidduch, how that marriage happened, and how Eliezer went to find the wife for Rivka, and now they actually get married, and they're married for a while, and Rivka is not having children. So Yitzchak is obviously, distressed by this. He wants to have children. He wants to have offspring. So what does a Jew do when we are in need of something? We daven. So it's a very quick story. At least it's not a quick story in years, but it's a quick story in the way it's written in the Torah. Torah says that Yitzchak was 40 years old when he married Rivka, and the next sentence, the next verse says that she wasn't having children. Vayetar Yitzchak LaHashem lenochach ishtay ki akara hi. Yitzchak prayed to Hashem, entreated Hashem on behalf of his wife because she was barren, she wasn't having kids, and Vayeyaser loy Hashem v'tar Rivka ishta, and Hashem accepted those prayers, and Rivka became pregnant. Okay, that's the Jewish way. When we need something, we daven, and he davened for a while. It definitely took some time till she actually had children, but Hashem answered her prayers, his prayers, and now Rivka has a bit of a stressful pregnancy. Okay? So she's pregnant with twins. That we know. The Torah says that she became pregnant. Vayisrotzitzu habanim dekirba. The children agitated within her. And she was very, very much not enjoying this process. And she says, Im kain lama ze anochi. If so, why am I? Or almost like, what am I? And she went to inquire of Hashem. She went to try to understand why she's having such difficulties, and the kids within her were very agitated. We'll explore what that means in a minute. And Hashem's response to her was, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 regimes from your inside shall be separated. And basically, the answer is that there's two kids in there. There's 2 kids in there. It's very likely, commentators say, that she did not even know that she was pregnant with twins. I don't think they had ultrasounds in the times of Rivka. So she has this, whatever it is that's bothering her, and Hashem's response is that there's 2 nations in there. So we need to understand what happens. So, what we're taught as kids is, quoted from the commentaries, that when she would walk around town to different places, the kids within her would start like jumping around and kicking. So sometimes she would pass by like a holy place or a Jewish place or a synagogue or whatever, and one of the kids started kicking, and then she'd pass by a church or an impure place, and the other one would start kicking. So she's trying to understand what this process is all about. Okay, so I want to share a thought on this story. And the simple meaning, it obviously must be that what's bothering her is not pregnancy pains. It's not pregnant. Somebody who doesn't have a kid for decades does not get stressed out to the extent of an existential crisis. Lama ze anochi, why am I? Why do I exist? What is my purpose when you're pregnant with twins? That's not the response of a woman who's been trying to have kids for a long time. So obviously it's not just about a difficult pregnancy or anything like that. That would not make sense. So it was Rashi that had quoted that idea that when she would walk by a house of idolatry, Esau would get excited and want to kick and almost want to go out and worship idols, and that was his instincts, and walk by a beis medrash or a study hall, a place of Torah, and Yaakov would want to get out. Okay, so I heard this idea a little while ago from the Tiferes Shlomo. That's the name of a sefer. And he explains that Rivka did not know that she was expecting twins. So she's pregnant. She thinks she's pregnant with one kid. Now, she's probably picking up on these messages, okay? The kids are not randomly kicking and getting excited. Whenever she passes by the idol worship place and the synagogue, she gets these kicks. So I'm sure she's picking up like, hey, I'm on this block again. I'm on this, road again and in front of this shul, and now the kicking starts again. So she probably is feeling that there's some unusual reaction. But this is the most confusing reaction you could get, because that kid within her is both kicking to go learn Torah and kicking to go worship idols. This is what gave her so much distress. This is what gave her this idea of what am I? What is my purpose? Meaning to say, if I'm pregnant with a tzaddik, wonderful. What a privilege. What a merit. Hashem is sending me a good kid. And I'm going to do my best to raise him well. And if I'm pregnant with a rasha, with a kid who has bad tendencies, okay, I got to deal with it. Hashem's sending a challenge. I got to try to raise this kid as best as I possibly can. So I'll take it. Hashem, whatever you want to send me, I'll take it. And I'll handle it as best as I could. But I can't handle a kid who's a tzaddik and a rasha. I can't handle a kid who is confused in his core identity and has no idea which way he wants to pull. He both wants to go to do good and he wants to go to do bad. He has no clear direction in life. That is a challenge that is shaking her to her core. That she's not sure how to relate to. So I heard this idea, I think it was from Rabbi Weinram actually, great rabbi. And he takes this idea from the Tiferes Shlomo further and says we could all relate to this struggle of Rivka. We all have a part of us that's pulling us in two different directions. We have a part of us that pulls to godliness. We have a neshama. We have a pure soul that pushes us to engage in our Judaism, to connect to Hashem. But we also have a part of us that's very, very physical and gives us a lot of very material urges and impulses and is trying to get us to indulge in all kinds of forbidden pleasures and all kinds of things that are an opposite to godliness. So that could be confusing. Lama ze anochi? What's going on here? How come sometimes I'm so spiritually inclined and I'm on my game and I'm on fire and I'm excited and I'm passionate and I'm doing mitzvahs, and then all of a sudden randomly another time I lose that passion and I start pulling, I feel pulled to sin. I start being pulled to the opposite of that. So that's the question we ask. We might feel inclined to ask, Im kein lama ze anochi? What am I? What am I? What is my identity? How could I have two opposing identities at the same time? And Hashem answers our question in the same way Hashem responded to Rivka's question. What is the response? Shnei goyim bevitnech. There are two nations within you. There are two nations inside of you. We have a neshama, which is pure, which is a piece of Hashem, which is a chelik elokai mimal, and our neshama is intrinsically holy, and our neshama wants nothing but good for us. Our neshama is not confused. Our neshama does not sometimes want good and sometimes want bad. It has no desire to sin. That's why no matter how much a Jew sins, we've talked about this many times, he or she will still have a pure neshama within them. No matter what he's done, the piece of godliness within a Jew cannot be ruined. It could be covered up. It could be blocked. It could be not felt. It could be pushed down. There's a lot of things that it could be, but it can't in itself. It can't be ruined. It can't become unholy. And then you know what we have? We have another part of us. We have a separate entity within us. Represented by whatever you want to call it, the physical body, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. We have these parts of us that are rooted in physicality and are trying to pull us towards more animalistic instincts. And that's another part of us that we need to handle, kind of. If we understand that, we can understand that there's a struggle within us, but that doesn't give us an identity crisis. There is a struggle, there's no doubt. We're being pushed and pulled at the same time. but that is from two separate entities. We have a part of us that's good that doesn't become bad, and a part of us that's bad that's pulling us, but that doesn't affect our good part, that doesn't affect our neshama. So his message was, just understand this and you'll be a lot better off. Just understand that you are not confused. You just have two opposing forces within you that are coming from different places. Your identity is a holy Jew, and that will never be changed. That's the message we can learn from this back and forth, this conversation that Rivka has with Hashem. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. The twins are born, and we know that they have very different tendencies, even the way they look. The Torah says that Esav was red, and he was born full of hair. They named him Esav. Yaakov was grabbing onto the heel of Esav, but Esav was born first, so he's the proper legal firstborn. And Yaakov was holding onto his heel, so he's called Yaakov. One of the reasons for his name is it comes from the root word of heel. He was grabbing onto Esav's heel. And they grew up as very, very different people. The Torah says that the youths grew up. Esav was a man who knows trapping, a man of the field, and Yaakov was wholesome. Ish tam yoshev ahalim. He resided in his tents. He was a gentle, wholesome person. The tents of Yaakov are understood to be the tents of Torah study. He was rooted in Torah study. That was an area that he excelled in to very, very strong, in a very strong way. Just as Avraham excelled in Chesed, Yaakov excelled in Torah study. So they have very different ways, very different ways. Then we have this famous story, which we're taught about. It's incredible how this whole story is only in 5 sentences in the Torah. But Esav comes back from the field one day, from a day of trapping, and he's exhausted and he's hungry and he wants some food. And Yaakov's got some lentil soup, and he asks for it. And Yaakov says, "I want your birthright. I want your status of the firstborn." And Esav doesn't value any kind of status of being the firstborn. Yeah, keep in mind, he's not such a spiritual person, so what does that mean to him? I don't know, I'm hungry, give me some soup. You want to be called the firstborn? No problem. That's why it says he spurned the birthright. He didn't have any value for it. So they make that transaction, and Yaakov now has this merit of being called the firstborn. Okay, there's a lot to talk about that. But I'm not going to focus on that this year. I have in past years, and maybe I will in future years. But there's a lot there. There's a lot to understand. A very understandable question would be, how could you sell the birthright if birthright is dependent? Okay, so there's good questions and there's good answers. Go do your research and you'll find good answers. That's the truth. Go look into it. There's a lot of beautiful things. Okay, now Yitzchak goes off to Gerar. Yitzchak, there's a famine in the land, and Yitzchak and Rivka need to go travel. I'm also not going to dwell on this point, but I want to just ask a question I want to just share a question that I don't have an answer to. So my question is as follows. When he's going into Gerar, he's going to a place of strangers. The king of that area was Avimelech, and he's worried that they're going to take his wife. Okay? So what does he do? He makes this plan that he's going to refer to his wife as his sister. And if Rivka is his sister, they're not going to feel a need to kill him to take her. Does this story sound familiar to you?
Yes.
2 times familiar. Mm-hmm. This story happened 2 times to Avraham. The exact same thing. Just different person, different wife, and different king, and different city. And to Avraham it happened 2 times, both with different people as well. So I wish to know what the deeper message is here. This is not, we can't take this at face value, that this is just a story that happened 3 times. The Torah feels the need to share the same story 3 times. I mean, it's not the same story, but I know it happened 3 different times. But I feel like there must be a deeper reason why this was such a common thing to happen. Like, same move in the family, like this is what we're going to do again and again. Like, is there something deeper there? And is there something deeper as why the Torah is telling us this? Because I assure you that there were hundreds of stories that happened to our forefathers that did not make it into the Torah. Right? It's not a full recording of their life. So I tried to do some research on it, and research left me to a very dark place on the internet called Wikipedia. I highly recommend you stay far away from Wikipedia if you're looking for Torah. Okay, maybe other things Wikipedia is good for. I don't recommend looking at Torah. I looked in there, and maybe I shouldn't even share what it said there, but it basically said something along the lines that it's not a true story or something like that. So thank you very much, Wikipedia. Appreciate your help. And now we're looking for a real answer as to why the Torah, why this story happened so many times, and why the Torah records it each of those times. Okay, food for thought. Let's move on. Let's move on. We're going to move on to the blessings. This is a very integral part of this week's Parsha, is the story of how Yitzchak gave the brachos, the blessings, to his sons. Ultimately, he actually gave a blessing to both of them. But first, he wants to give a bracha to Esav. Okay? Right? The story goes that Yitzchak wants to give the bracha to Esav, and Rivka creates a whole trick with Yaakov to trick Esav out of the bracha to get the bracha for himself. Okay? Can we ask a simple question? Why does Yitzchak want to give Esav the bracha and not Yaakov? Why? Yitzchak doesn't know anything about his kids. Yitzchak, does Yitzchak think that Esav is more righteous than Yaakov? Maybe he was in the dark about what his kids were like. Yeah. I mean, what's the deal? Why does he want to give Esav the bracha and not Yaakov? And maybe you'll tell me because Esav was the firstborn. Okay, I think he lost that. He lost. I don't know I mean, I do know, but it needs to be discussed of what the significance of being the firstborn is. But let's just assume that the firstborn status comes with certain privileges. I think it is understandable that one can sell his privileges. Yeah, you can't sell the fact that you were born first to somebody who was born second. But if there's a package of perks that comes with being a firstborn, it is reasonable to me that can be sold. Okay, so it was sold. So now Yaakov has it. So maybe Yitzchak doesn't know that Yaakov bought it. Why is he giving the bracha to his son who is wicked? That is the question. The answer is in the Orach Chaim. The Orach Chaim, as are many answers to many questions you'll ask on the Torah. The Orach Chaim says, the Torah is explaining why Yitzchak did not summon Yaakov to give him the blessing. It was because Esav was the firstborn, and although Esav had sold the birthright to Yaakov, which includes the rights to the blessings, perhaps Yitzchak was not aware of this sale. Okay, that's the easy answer. Easy technical answer, firstborn. Okay, but the Orach Chaim points out that since Esav was wicked, you might have expected Yitzchak, to overlook the fact that he's the firstborn and give it to Yaakov, who's the better kid. He's a more righteous kid. You ready for this? The reason Yitzchak wanted to bless the wicked one, Esav, was that he thought the blessings would cause Esav to become good and to better his ways. For the righteous are pained when their children do evil. And Yitzchak therefore tried whatever he could to get Esav to improve his ways. It is indeed possible that this plan would have worked had he actually gotten the blessings, that maybe he would have returned from his path of evil and become good. So Yitzchak wanted his son to become better. You know why Yitzchak was going to give Esav the bracha? Because Esav needed it more. Who needs a bracha? Clearly Esav needs the bracha. Isn't that fascinating? I haven't seen that before.
Well, it seems logical.
Yeah, it seems logical. He understood his kids. And he just felt like the one who has more issues needs more work, needs more love, needs more blessing. Okay, so you obviously can take this to the next level and ask, if that's the case, why? Why did Rivka disagree with that? Why did Rivka help Yaakov trick Yitzchak? Whatever, we can ask more questions. I imagine If we'd learn further in the Archaim, we'd get more context on this. But time is limited, so we're going to go on. So Rivka has a plan to get the brachos for Yaakov. What's the plan? Esav's always going out to hunt for his father. He goes out to hunt. He's hungry. Yitzchak sends him out. And while he's hunting, Rivka tells Yaakov to put on his clothing, which are like hunters' animal skins, and go in there and pretend he's Yaakov. Now, by the way, the rabbis teach us that Yaakov and Esav actually had the same voice. They didn't have like a very different voice. We might be envisioning Esav with like this deep, raspy, I don't know what voice, and Yaakov is like a sweet Talmud Chacham, but I don't know what their voice sounded like, but they both sounded the same. So that trick could work because Yitzchak was blind. Yitzchak can't see. He can feel. He'll feel the skin. Yaakov will be giving him food, which he just sent his other kid to go get, and boom, we have a plan on how to get the blessings to be given to Yaakov. So he goes in there. Yitzchak feels him. Famous words Yitzchak says, Hakol kol Yaakov, ha'yadayim yedei Esav. The voice sounds like Yaakov, and the hands feel like the hands of Esav. So what we learn from there, and what we learn from other parts of the blessing as well, is that our superpower of the Jewish people, the descendants of Yaakov, is our voice, is our ability to pray. You could also use your voice for other mitzvahs like Torah study, but primarily prayer is our tool. The tool of Esav and his descendants is his hand. The basic idea that we're going to learn from here is when Yaakov's mouth is strong and his prayer and connection to Hashem is strong, then Esav doesn't have power over Yaakov. Esav's power of his hands only works if Yaakov's power of his mouth is not being used properly. But we'll get more to that here. Okay, do we have a question now? Okay, if you've been paying attention, we should have a question now. I just said before that their voice sounded the same. So why is Yitzchak saying that the voice is the voice of Yaakov and the hands are the hands of Esav? If their voice sounds the same, they're not being tricked. I mean, between me and you, if both kids sounded very different, Yitzchak is not falling for this. Come on, you know what your kid's voice sounds like. So it must be that their voice was the same. So what does it mean the voice is the voice of Yaakov? So to answer that question, I want to share another idea with you. This idea is from the Zera Shimshon. The Zera Shimshon. Very special commentary on the Torah and other things as well. Okay, so Rivka makes the plan. Esav goes to hunt. Yaakov gets a meal. Rivka helps Yaakov prepare a meal and bring it to Yitzchak. And Yitzchak was basically surprised that Esav got back so quickly. He said something like that. He said something like, "Whoa, like he got back quickly." I'm not sure which verse that was. Okay. What is Yaakov's response? I kind of want to find this. What is Yaakov's response? Yaakov's response is, Hashem helped me. Hashem helped me. Yeah. So chapter 27, verse 20. Yaakov comes to his father and says, "Father, here I am. I am your firstborn. I've done as you told me. Please give me the blessing." Yitzchak says, How is it that you were so quick to find my son? How did you hunt so quickly? And he said, "Because Hashem, your God, arranged it for me." And then Yitzchak said, "Come close, if you please, so I could feel you, to see if you're Esav or not." And then he says the voice is Yaakov's voice, but the hands are Esav's hand. So what happened here? What threw Yitzchak off? The emunah, the response of Hashem. Yaakov responds, "How did you cook? How did you hunt so quickly?" "Oh, Hashem helped me out." I said, whoa, red flag. Red flag. I'm not sure that you're Esav. You get over here, let me feel you. So when he said, Hakol Ko Yaakov, the voice is the voice of Esav. He meant the way he's talking is not the way of Esav, it's the way of Yaakov. That's why he wanted to like feel him, and that's why he was a little bit like thrown off by that kind of emunah. So the idea that the message that the Zera Shimshon wants to give us from that is a very simple message. Very simple message. If you'd go hunting and you'd catch something, you'd kill something, and you'd come back and somebody said like, where'd you get the food from? You'd probably say you hunted it and not Hashem sent it to me. The message in Emunah, the message to us from Yaakov, is that tiny little mundane things, Yaakov is quick to attribute to Hashem. And you see some people like that. Some people always have Hashem on their lips. Everything that happens. How you doing? You know, the Chazdei Hashem, with the grace of Hashem. Or how did that happen? How did that work out? How's business going? Everything is Baruch Hashem, thank you Hashem. You know, everything we're just like crediting to Hashem. That's a lesson that the Zera Shimshon says we should learn from Yaakov. But if you're trying to trick your father that you're the wicked son, it might not be the right thing to say. You know, on a tactical level, it definitely caused a red flag. Okay? Okay, so then the next point is, we'll do one or two more points and we'll stop. The next point is that Esav got a bracha as well. He was horrified, heartbroken, screaming and crying that when he came back and realized he got gypped out of his bracha. He asked for a bracha, and he's given a bracha as well. He's given the leftover bracha. You know, it wasn't the greatest bracha. Yeah, here's the bracha. Behold, of the fatness of the earth shall be your dwelling, and of the dew of the heavens above, by your sword you shall live, but your brother you shall serve. How's that for a bracha? Yeah. Your brother you shall serve. No, not the greatest bracha there, right? Yeah, and it shall be that when you are aggrieved, you may cast off his yoke from upon your neck. Okay, that's interesting. You are going to be subservient to your brother, but when you are aggrieved, then you don't need to be subservient to your brother, and then you're really living by the sword. And that's that idea. That's where the sages learn out that idea, that when we're on our game and serving Hashem, then Esav's descendants have no power over us. But when we're lacking, and we're lacking in our connection or in our prayer, and we're not using our superpower, which is our mouth, then unfortunately Esav gets the ability to use his superpower, which is his sword. So that's like, the idea is that we in a sense, the descendants of Yaakov and the descendants of Esav will never coexist. That is the harsh reality. As we say, Esav sona es Yaakov. Esav hates Yaakov. Esav's descendants hate Yaakov, and there ain't nothing we can do about that. That's basically part of the laws of nature, is that Esav's descendants hate the descendants of Yaakov. And that's the way it is. We don't coexist, but we will be left alone, and we will be strong, and we will be unharmed when we use our power, which is the power of our mouth, to daven, to connect to Hashem, to engage in our Judaism. Okay, let's stop here. There's more to the Parsha, but that's enough for this week. And we'll continue on next week's Parsha.
Okay, very good.